Thank you for joining the engineering panel. My name is Devin Weed. I'm a member of the Bitwarden marketing team, and I will be your moderator for the next 20 minutes. Also joining me on today's panel, we have Bitwarden engineers Chad Scharf, Addison Beck, and Matt Gibson. And to start, we'd love for each of you to just go ahead and introduce yourselves so people understand who they're speaking to and listening to today. So Chad, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So my name's Chad Scharf, Director of Engineering here at Bitwarden. Been with the company since March. And really what I do here is try to organize and lead both the engineering, development, quality, and DevOps efforts through both channel through the community and internally here as we work on our products. I'll hand it over to Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. My name is Matt Gibson. I am the newest software engineer at Bitwarden. I've only been here for about a month, but I'm ramping up pretty quick. And what I do is just improve product and implement new features. It's been a ton of fun so far. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to all of you. Addison, you're up.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Addison Beck. I'm a software developer with Bitwarden out of Atlanta, Georgia. I've been with the company since August, and my primary responsibilities are just churning out everything that's on the roadmap that I'm sure you guys will be hearing about in just a second. So excited to be here and talk about Bitwarden. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Now, I'll be asking each of you questions based on some of the trending topics that we're seeing in password security space, along with some best practices. So let's go ahead and jump into the first question since we only have just over 15 minutes left. Now, there's a lot of buzz lately, and we've already heard some of it today, about passwordless authentication and that passwords are dead. Chad, from your perspective, what does the future of authentication look like?
Sure. Well, I always love this question. Got to give it a little thought before I answer. But really, for the last 15 years, I've been hearing articles and stories, prominent security researchers and technologists coming out and stating that passwords are going away, passwords are dead. And there's many new promising technologies, techniques, things that are promising to usurp passwords. But at the end of the day, really it boils down to, I don't think that's going to happen. Or if it does, it's going to take a very long time. So given that, we still have companies using Windows XP, companies running mission critical applications on AS400s and mainframes. And these technologies are 40 plus years old. The cost of upgrading, implementing new technologies and doing those things can be prohibitive for a lot of organizations, especially ones in larger enterprises that have sweeping numbers of internal tools and other things. That transition is going to take a long period of time. And in the meantime, you have passwords. Until we get tokens, biometrics, and other types of technologies readily in the hands of everyday users, and all technologies, platforms, operating systems, devices are capable of utilizing those in a seamless way that's easy for the user. Ultimately, at the end of the day, passwords are still going to provide what we need in terms of security, or at least the best overall compromise between ease of use and security. Of course, there's lots of ways to make those better, but most of the technologies I've seen over the last 15 years that were supposed to replace passwords have really acted as maybe multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentications to be used in addition to passwords, such as single sign-on, et cetera.
Yeah, that was a great response. And I'd love to hear if Addison or Matt, if either one of you have any different thoughts or considerations for this topic.
No, I totally agree. Ultimately, you need a backup for all these things, and you need a very basic way of allowing cross-platform accessibility. So, like Chad said, passwords are an excellent middle ground where it hits all the right things. They're fairly easy to remember. They're secure, and yeah, there's a lot of promise with other things, but it's going to take a long time to implement them.
Absolutely. It's so ingrained in our society as well. So that was a great point. Now, another very hot topic, zero knowledge encryption. Matt, how would you describe the best use case and of the best use of end-to-end encryption, and more specifically, how Bitwarden end-to-end encryption protects user data?
Sure. So end-to-end encryption is a concept where data is encrypted at the source and maintained in an encrypted state throughout its entire life cycle until it's decrypted, where it's ultimately consumed. And Bitwarden is built from the ground up to do this. So all of our clients don't ever communicate anything that is not encrypted to the server. So everything is encrypted before it's sent up. It's stored on fully encrypted disks. It's stored in a still encrypted state in our databases, and it's only decrypted once clients pull it down and decrypt it themselves. So that's really the definition of what end-to-end encryption is. And as for zero knowledge, zero trust, things like that, those are ways of, they're security concepts in guaranteeing that you don't necessarily need to expose information in saying, yeah, I know that fact, or there are protocols to make sure that you don't have to expose anything when you're doing these kinds of handshakes. And at Bitwarden, zero trust is implemented through us not storing any kind of information that will unlock your private keys. So your master password is the key here. There's obviously some more stuff behind it, but we can't unlock that key and use it unless we get the master password. So while those things are stored, ultimately it's entirely secure, and it's up to you to expose that information effectively, for Bitwarden's case, to yourself. But that's what end-to-end encryption looks like at Bitwarden.
Absolutely. The word trust has just been coming up left and right today, and I can't thank you enough for really nailing that point, especially when it comes to just the trust of software. That was a big topic earlier in Martin's Nico's presentation, and with all online security risks at an all-time high, that's just getting more complicated. So what can individual people be doing to keep their data secure? And I'd love to hear from you, Addison. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say that a lot of people, even in organizations and things that are carrying sensitive data, are still kind of missing out on a lot of the basics of this kind of privacy stuff. I've worked with people that used 2 passwords for everything and stored them in text files on their desktop, things that are just completely unsafe. I think that there's a lot of simple tools that you can leverage just in your browser through browser extensions that you can use to limit ads and trackers and things like that, or just not sharing very sensitive information about yourself online. The same person that was storing passwords in a text file was using his mother's maiden name as security question. He was proud of all of these things, that's how I know about them. He thought that it was just great that he was fulfilling all of these tropes. But it really just, it was putting him at risk. And you can take these simple tools to great extremes that would just cover almost any use case. Just in your browser, you can turn cookies off completely. Most of the web probably wouldn't be super fun after that, but you can turn off JavaScript and completely block out any kind of, pretty much, a lot. And people miss a lot of these tools that don't require a lot of technical knowledge that they can implement to keep themselves more secure.
Absolutely. Chad, what are some best practices around password security specifically?
So password security, outside of common sense, which goes out the window when we talk about password security, because it's an ever-evolving landscape, right? You asked me 10 years ago, a 6-character password with a number in it was probably the most secure thing I could think of, where today we're being told completely different standards as we approach that. We want long passphrases that are maybe easy to remember, but difficult to guess. Large amounts of complexity and randomness in your passwords. It's a concept called entropy, which is more of a physics term. But when it comes to passwords and security and encryption, you really want to create something that's incredibly hard to guess, and the longer the better. That means it's going to take a computer longer to guess it, or brute force attack it, or come in through different what are called side channel attacks, etc. So really, when it comes to password hygiene, One, the password you choose should be complex and long. How do you do that? With tools that generate passwords for you, can generate the level of complexity that you want. And then you need to remember those, which is, I know for me, impossible because my memory is maybe 5 seconds at best. I'm lucky to remember what I walked into the room for when I walk into it. So password managers are a great way to do that. And then never reusing your passwords, because password reuse is one of the other things. Well, I've got this one password, it's complex, and I remember it, so I'm proud of it. I'm going to use it everywhere, so I don't have to guess what my password was for my bank versus logging into my work email. So those are the two kind of big ones, and password managers definitely help with both of those scenarios.
Absolutely. And it's pretty fascinating when you think about the volume of people who are aware of the risks of reusing passwords, but continue to do so because of the complexity of trying to remember them and accessing your security solutions or your software solutions, at a drop of a hat when you need them. And so, adding an additional layer of complexity is concerning, but you need to take the management out of password management. So when we're thinking about adding an additional layer of security to the login process, multi-factor security options, what do those look like, Matt?
Yeah, I also just want to add on to the password thing. It's funny that we have so far 2 requirements, and it's already not tenable for a person to remember, right? I think Freshman was saying that the average person needs something like 60 passwords. And that it's not possible for someone to have good high entropy passwords and to every single thing, and they're all different. So at that point, a password manager really is absolutely necessary. But the one thing about passwords is that if you have a good one, it should be fairly static. And it's also, in some case, you're trusting whatever the password is for to store that in a secure manner. I think we all are aware of instances where that didn't happen. Passwords were stored in plain text, and hacks and breaches happen, and huge data dumps of millions of passwords also occur. Sarah pointed out a very famous one that apparently happened in oh man, I forgot the answer now, 2017. And the way to prevent that is to have more than just your single static password. So that's the concept between multi-factor authentication or 2-factor authentication. I guess it's called multi-factor because, hey, maybe you have 3. But really what this is having a single-use password or single-use proof that increases your long-standing password to something that is completely random and generated for that one logon. So the way that Bitwarden supports this is through time-based one-time passwords, YubiKeys, which are little devices that you plug into USB, or some of them have near-field communication capabilities. FIDO keys, which are similar. We work with Duo that can produce 2-factor authentication in a number of ways. And then the last way that Bitwarden could do it is through sending an email and effectively having a one-time use URL that you can click on and validate who you are. So all of these things are ways to not only have your password protecting you, but then also something that is like totally random, and whoever wants to get in your account has to not only know your password, but they also have to have access to this other physical thing. They have to have some special knowledge. They have to do something more than just have gotten your password somewhere.
Absolutely. Addison, what would you add to that?
I actually was just thinking that I learned this from the Bitwarden community, but there's sort of a 3-step authentication method that I've been considering implementing in my own Bitwarden vault, where people will write out their password and then have their own sort of random string. It could just be as short as a TOTP code, and they will not put that in the cipher entry in their vaults, and just keep it in their mind, and then autofill from Bitwarden and append the short, easily memorizable string at the end, and just completely, even if end-to-end encryption wasn't a thing, we would have no idea what your actual passwords were. And if you pair that with our TOTP generation, it seems very, very safe.
Absolutely. Chad, do you have thoughts on what the future of 2FA looks like?
Wow, I mean, it's really expanding. We've seen a lot kind of go into the way of biometrics, everything from email magic links to physical devices. I think what I've seen across the industry through the FIDO Alliance and some of the other great things going on through that, I believe we're going to find more and more proof of identity through multi-factor, through tokens, whether those are physical tokens, an actual device, converting your phone to a token, which has its own level of authentication to use for such. You know, the sky's the limit from there with the types of things that they're working on and doing. And although, you know, I'd never get one, to be clear, I'm sure, you know, the folks lining up to get implants or other crazy stuff that will read, you know, body biometrics or other things like that. So there's a bunch of different branches and arms going out there, but really time-based tokens that can sync up to a server, they can work offline. They're predictable enough so they work, and they have some known shared iteration between them, so you can do authentication with it, but not so much that you can guess what the next value is going to be, for example. And that's kind of where we see the trend heading at the moment.
It's really interesting. And when we're thinking about cross-platform devices, that just adds a lot of complexity as well, ensuring that the information is secure on your mobile devices, on your desktop devices, on your laptops. And it's really complicated for organizations, especially to secure that infrastructure across all employees. So what are some best practices for organizations that are just starting to dip their toes into password security? Obviously, 2FA is one element to it, but ensuring that all of their employees are leveraging good password hygiene is a difficult problem to solve. So as we're nearing the end here, I'd love to just hear your thoughts and feel free to either any three of you to go ahead and jump into this. But what are best practices for organizations to ensure that their employees are taking advantage of these best practices?
Well, to kind of start off, and then I'll let the other two guys jump in here. Really, and Freshman brought this up, it's a great point, is treating your users as first-class citizens, right? So enterprises have to be cognizant of what's going to be adopted within their organization. What are people actually going to use and do? As you start pushing policies, especially like you must do X, you have to make it easy for that person to do it, and at a level of capability and technical capability that not everyone in an organization is going to have. Now, not everyone works for a Silicon Valley software startup, right? So, you know, keeping those things in mind, choosing a password manager that has password generators that can enforce policies, that can walk folks through what they're doing, that makes autofill and other things easy and sharing relatively straightforward, I think is probably one of the lowest barriers to entry to getting an enterprise-wide kind of password solution in your organization. Absolutely.
But also getting those users to leverage those and to align to those policies can be difficult. Addison, what are your thoughts on user adoption?
I think that a great way to kind of get users involved and interested in this product is just to show them that they can use it personally too. Well, there is a policy coming up that we're implementing that would restrict usage of a personal vault optionally. Most of our organizations seem okay with letting users just use Bitwarden for storing their own personal passwords too. And it's completely isolated from anything that's saved in an organization collection or anything like that. So I think that if you just show the product to people in your organization and say, hey, go just put your Google password in here, you know, and maybe use the generator to change it and just see how much more secure you feel. When I first started using a password manager and the first password that I changed was my Google password, it felt really good to change that to a 99 character, you know, like random string. I was like, no one's getting into this ever. You know, I think that's a great way to just really sell the product, is to help people use it in their personal lives to feel more safe.
That is such a great response, and I completely agree. Personally, I understand exactly what you mean by that, and understanding the value in your day-to-day. It makes it so much easier to apply that during the workday as well. Now, we do only have 1 minute left, so I want to go ahead and give Matt anything else you'd like to add. Please feel free as we near the end here. Do you have anything else you'd like to point out?
Definitely. For organization adoption, to me, the biggest thing is education. And like Addison pointed out, pointing out how it actually simplifies your life. The key, the reason I'm at Bitwarden is because it does something that's incredibly important, and it does it in a way that makes your life simpler and better. It's a home run. So I think that we all have been battered with like password rules, and we like technically understand why you need strong passwords. Like everybody thinks through the ramifications of what could happen, but treating users like actual people and going through some actual empathetic education is not something that I've experienced. You kind of have to figure out why this is important for yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that you're completely locked out of things. Maybe somebody steals your identity, all that kind of stuff, the horrible things that can happen to people. But going for more of a personal, kinesthetic almost training for how to use these things and why you should, I think, can improve adoption a lot. Once people realize what's at stake, they're going to want to secure their stuff.
You're so right about that. And while we are at the end here, I encourage everybody who's listening today to check out our community forums, because that is where a lot of our engineers hang out, like these guys, and you can engage with them, ask questions, or suggest a feature for our future roadmap.